the thing that I'm most, interested in learning from you, Derek, is, to be completely honest, you started as a music teacher.
Essentially, yes.
And now I met you as a serial entrepreneur. And that transition is a huge thing because it's not your first business.
Right.
It's not your second business.
No.
It might not even be your third business.
Nope.
But you didn't start this way. And the big thing about the Doer Paradox is people who are ambitious and aspirational finally achieving, the first steps. Mm-hmm. You've done the first steps multiple times.
Sure.
Genuinely from starting completely over. But they always say, once you know the system, it's easier to start again.
Absolutely, yeah.
So take me back. What was, younger Derek doing in school, and how did that get into music before we kind of get into the business side of things?
Okay, so I know I said I wasn't going to go all the way back, but to go all the way back, my dad was a music teacher and a serial entrepreneur. He still is. He's 81. And he had 3 or 4 businesses going at all times. So when he retired from being a music teacher, and that's how I got my first gig teaching music, was that he hired me on his staff. Okay. Teaching high school music, because he became the district coordinator of music. So I went from that and always having 2 or 3 other businesses going on in some level of production at all times, to wanting to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be Steven Spielberg growing up. I used to shoot movies with my camcorder all the time. I was that kid. And so I went to college. Well, in school, if you ask what I was doing in school, I was horrible in school. You couldn't keep my attention on any subject long enough. I was the kid who would skip all the classes, but just kind of absorbed knowledge here and there. And so I would skip as many classes as I could possibly skip without being held back. And then just go in and say, I had a stomach issue. I was sick. Would you mind testing me on my knowledge? And, I would get an F or low scores on all of my participation. But then I'd come in and comprehension, I would ace that test. I don't know how, just was a thing. In the middle, it would average out to about a C. And they would go, get out of here, just go. I was, and this is going to sound like a humble brag. It's not meant to be a humble brag, but I had a hard time keeping focus in classes, whether they were elementary school, junior high, high school, or college. I had a hard time waiting for the other kids to catch up because my brain was already like, all right, got it. Teach me the next thing. But then we'd go through reviews. And then we'd go through reviews because they tell you what they're going to tell you. Then they'll tell you what they are going to tell you. Then they'll tell you what they just told you for people to learn. I'm just like, all right, no, got it. Let's go. And by the time they started repeating themselves on the second time around, I was like, I've got other places to be.
I can relate to that. We were part of a small little group in 5th grade, and we were handed pre-algebra books. And our teacher told us, okay, guys, this is the chapters that you should look at. And then we just did the chapters and did the reviews in the books. And everyone else was actually learning the coursework.
Yeah. I failed a lot because I didn't want to fit in.
So, okay. How did that fit with home structure? Was it, your dad was an entrepreneur, so obviously, I'm sure some of that was hereditary, at least relatable for him, your activity, your behavior. But how did what were their expectations of you and versus your activity?
Their expectations of me were, they didn't have any. They just supported me. They set me up to win in every situation possible. And when I wanted extra camera gear, they bought me extra camera gear. They had enough money that they weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination, but they supported me. We were upper middle class, white folks in suburbia. So I was extremely lucky to be raised in that environment where I really wasn't wanting for anything. And when I got 3/4 of the way through something and ultimately I tired of it, and I would go to them and I would say, I don't want to do this anymore. And they'd get pissed off. But the love never stopped. The support never stopped. And ultimately, it took me a while, but I found my niche in creating things that no one had ever seen before.
So I talk about pretty often the idea that you were born with boundless creativity, and it's only learned limitations. Sounds like you didn't have, at least your childhood, instilling any limitations on you. When did you start feeling that, if you did at all, in school or society?
So going to college, I went to Indiana University of Pennsylvania. I followed a girl there. I was going to Montgomery County Community College at the time because I really was not interested in going to school. I slept in the parking lot more often than not at Montco. But then the girl I was dating got accepted. She was a year younger than me, so she got out of high school. She got accepted at IUP. And I, like 2 days before they were closing admissions, I applied and I got accepted into their film program. And then I went and did a site visit and found out that they hadn't had a film program in like 15 years. But they had a television studio. And this was before the time of nonlinear video editing and computers and all these things. So essentially, I got out there and I said, well, none of these courses support what I want to do. They aren't teaching the courses that I want. So I created them. And then I started working at the local CBS affiliate out in Altoona, PA. I started stringing, just basically shooting local news footage for the news, sending the CBS affiliate out there footage. They would pay me. I would learn about computers and nonlinear video editing. I would spend my time studying the future of technology. And I would come back to, at the time, educate my teachers on what was possible.
Okay, so you're jumping right into I'm going out and making it happen.
Right.
When I first met you, I did not necessarily think that you were the most, outspoken and, outgoing person. How did you have that handled enough to go out and ask for these opportunities or create them? Because that sounds like the barrier that a lot of people could run into is, I see that there's somewhere I want to go, but nobody's created the path for me yet. And it's scary and overwhelming to go talk to people. Why was that something that you just did?
Good question. I am an introvert. I am not outgoing. I would rather work strategy, design, implementation all by myself in a dark room for hours on end. I really didn't become more outgoing until after all my health issues. And that was out of responsibility. But there was a bridge growing up. There was a metaphorical bridge between where I was and what I wanted to do. And a lot of times the bridge was the fact that something didn't exist that did what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so I had to I've always been self-assured. I've never had a doubt on I sucked in school, not because I was not smart. I sucked in school because I did not apply myself. Yeah. And I knew that if I applied myself to anything, I could figure anything out.
What did success look like to you growing up? A lot of us reference our parents or people that we grow up with. So what was that definition of success to you growing up?
Just being able to do what you wanted to do when you wanted to do it.
Who were the people in your life with that degree of success?
Well, my dad always had a level of success. I have a second uncle and his father who were very well off, and they were running second cousin. My dad's cousin was a therapist, and he ran a successful therapy practice with his wife out of their home, and they were exceptionally successful. His father was the personal assistant to William Randolph Hearst of Yellow Journalism, and the guy that they modeled Citizen Kane off of, Orson Welles modeled Citizen Kane off of this guy. So he lived there in what became Xanadu in California. So, but he was also the stingiest relative that I've ever known. So I was always around people who had a good amount of money, but it was never flashy. So success really didn't look like money to me. Success just looked like being able to pursue your passions without anyone saying, no, you can't do that. You've got to do this thing over here.
I think that that's going to be kind of the underlying reason why you've been able to do as much as you've done and will continue. And that's a counterpart to what I've heard and seen with people or experienced myself sometimes of it's all internal.
Yeah.
If you have not learned to define it any other way than I can, then nothing is impossible.
Right.
So, okay. You were working with your father in music, and in your early 20s, you started your first business. What was that and how did that happen?
So while I was doing music, I wanted to be a director. So I had all this video technology that I used. But this was just as, like I said, nonlinear video editing was coming out. So it was the combination of computers and video. So back in the day, no computer, you couldn't go to Best Buy and buy a computer that was capable of doing nonlinear video editing. You had to build it from scratch. And so I didn't have any computer training, but I was probably within that first generation of just intuitively knowing how computers worked, and being able to build computers from motherboards on up. So I got extremely familiar with computer hardware, computer software programming, video editing, and things of that nature. That included designing graphics with Photoshop, and Avid was a brand way back in the day. The video toaster, and all these things that were just coming out, and people were figuring them out. I figured them out, and so because I could do programming, then there was this whole thing of AOL and dial-up and the internet. I was going to say the interwebs, because I always say the interwebs. But I developed this company with 2 or 3 other guys that built websites for people, designed graphics, created content, and created websites and integrated 3D animation and stuff like that. So that ended about as well as you would think 3 or 4 guys in their early to mid 20s would, when all of us had a giant difference of opinion and split up the company. It was never successful to the point where we wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So we were doing technology, we were writing screenplays for Hollywood. There was nobody telling us that we couldn't do that. But yeah, from there, I wanted to become a filmmaker. So I started working the independent film scene in Philly. So working with NFL Films and shooting, full-length features and producing and editing and just basically immersing myself in it, but quickly realized that the independent film scene in Philly, there's only like a small group of people who are actually able to live off of that kind of income.
Yeah. Well, how are you even getting yourself in these rooms? Again, it's a world of who you know.
So I've always been the kind of person who wants to make himself indispensable to the people who are doing the things that I ultimately want to do. So in college, which I still didn't attend all that regularly, but I did have an internship. and I found the biggest studio in Philadelphia. And they were shooting films inside their facility. They had several sets and studios and sight walls, green screens. And I asked them if I could do an internship. They said, yeah, kid. If you're going to be an intern here, and they really didn't have an internship program, but I said, I'll do anything. And they said, all right, so you're going to bring us coffee, you're going to bring us donuts, you're going to take out the trash, you're going to paint the graffiti off the walls outside, because we're right across the street from a methadone clinic, and it gets kind of crazy sometimes. I said, done. If you'll let me be in this environment, I'll do whatever you want me to. Day one, I was producing, I was editing, I was writing. I never painted graffiti off the walls because I made myself indispensable.
So you found yourself wanting to get into an industry that is definitely not a one-person industry. No. This is a team sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's different from some of us who have looked at, hey, I know I want to be a furniture designer. I want to be the best, at something specific. And it might be a little harder because you're basically playing imposter syndrome against these big figures. But for you, you said, I just want to be on the team.
Right.
All I need to do is find a team that will let me hang around and be the bench warmer, and it'll work its way through. So where did that take you? What was the length of that pursuit?
I did that until I was about 27 years old. And I basically, because I was the bench warmer, they let me in and let me do every single aspect of what the team did until I was producing and editing, and working with computers and working with nonlinear video editing and working with 3D animation. And so quickly realized that I wasn't making a whole lot of money. I wanted an easier way to make money. So I started looking for work, and I had all of this computer technology and video and 3D animation know-how. And I applied for a job at a big pharma company. Long shot, but they were looking for a web designer. They were taking what had been the copy center, like photocopy room.
Yeah.
They had renovated that into a graphics and design center for the entire pharma company out of Collegeville. And they didn't have anything. I mean, they had people who were designing PowerPoints and overhead slides and taking extremely complicated ideas, which are drugs and disease states, and trying to sell to doctors. But basically, it was all about instructional design. How do you take extremely complicated ideas and make them as simple as possible so that a sales force can sell them to doctors?
Yeah.
And so I started, and I became their web designer, and it was me and a graphic designer. They paired us up. And I started talking to the marketing directors upstairs, the product owners upstairs, who had all of these products and ideas of what they wanted to do that included video, that included 3D animation, that they didn't want to do PowerPoint slides. And I was in the room with them, and I said, I can do that. Now, at the time, I had no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
For them, for their specific need. But I was like, I could figure that out. Give me a few hours with unlimited budget, and I can figure that out. And so very, very quickly, I became known as the guy or the kid at the time within this massive pharma company that could figure stuff out that everyone else said couldn't be done on a budget and a time frame. So very, very quickly, that little room became a multimedia division of this pharmaceutical company. And so at the time, this was still in the early years of high-speed internet. The majority of the world was still out there on 28.8 dial-up. And all these marketing directors wanted to get video information, video content to their doctors. If I can get the leader of the oncology world saying why my drug is best on camera, on video, and I can share that with other doctors, then those doctors are more likely to write this product. But at the time, 28.8 dial-up was not ready for prime time. So they used to have like clamshell CD box kits, CD-ROMs of a half hour worth of video on a postage stamp size frame. Mm-hmm. They would have like 3 or 4 discs set for about a half hour's worth of content. And I looked at that and I said, well, I could probably figure something out around that. So I would go stand in the aisle of Barnes and Noble, and I would start researching, soldering motherboards and, developing technology and frameworks and processes that ultimately led to a process patent of integrating FireWire technology, which was a transfer protocol at the time, which was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. It was fast, super fast. But basically, I created a technology that allowed digitally shot video, to get into computers with the least amount of transforming the video signal. Mm-hmm. So it created these extremely high quality videos at extremely small file sizes. And then I created the compression program within the computer to make them even smaller, so that we were able to deliver what they called at the time the elephant through the straw. Video content, high quality video content, over 28 dial-ups and 56K dial-ups. And so that was massive. And then right around that same time, another pharma company merged with my pharma company and said, congratulations, everybody. Come on down to the cafeteria. We've got a big announcement. And the CEO came on this big video screen straight from France saying, congratulations, we've merged with another pharma company. Your services are no longer required. We're moving everybody to Kansas City. If you want to go to Kansas City, let your bosses know. Otherwise, thank you, goodbye.
So you found another team, made yourself indispensable again, basically got the green light to go down this venture of new discovery, but in doing so, leverage yourself even more for this company.
Yeah.
Sounds like you were doing pretty well when this when the brakes got slammed on.
And everybody knew me, and not everybody was excited about going to Kansas City. So if your viewers are old enough to remember the movie Jerry Maguire, I went back upstairs to all my marketing director friends, and I said, I'm starting my own company. Who's coming with me? And with that, they became my first client for this new business that I had created called M3. And with that, we parlayed that relationship and the deliveries that we were making there into 8 of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in the world. And being in Pennsylvania, the pharma corridor of New Jersey is right here. So we went right up and down the 202 highway and worked with 8 of the top 10. Now, at the time, I was still living in my parents' basement and built a company in my parents' basement. And so we built it to about 12 employees at the time. Sales, programmers, designers, operations, until the neighbors started complaining to my parents that all of the cars were blocking their mailboxes on the street, and the post office wouldn't deliver their mail. So then we bought a facility and moved out of my parents' basement. But until then, my mom was in her housecoat, bringing down a pot of coffee and pouring everybody pots of coffee.
So I know you talked about how you were never stifled or limited with your belief. Were you being mentored at this point, or were you leveraging connections to people who were already business owners and stuff? Like how'd you know what time or when to be humble enough to say it's not just me, it's a team again?
everybody I knew was a business owner. Everybody I knew had to struggle and scrape and scrap. I just saw a lot of things that weren't where I wanted them to be yet. So I just said, okay, yeah, I'll go build that. And then I became indispensable to that crew, and that team grew. And so that's what it was. It was just, how do I get to do what I want to do? And who are the people that I need to partner with to help me get there?
So this was all in the late 90s, M3?
M3 started in 1998.
Okay. And smooth sailing for the first few years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're at the front of a big boom of technology, and you're doing pretty good and positioned in a great spot.
Yeah, we developed the video technology. We created the first sales training product on the iPad. So, all of it. We were just having fun. And then M3 spawned M3 Health, which then, so we created M3 Group, which created M3 Health. And then we created an incubation company to start other startups, technology startups.
Sounds like an entrepreneur dream.
Yeah. So basically, every time we had a really good idea that a client created for us, like they came up with the idea, and my business partner would say, yeah, we got that. And then he'd look at me and go, we got this, don't we? I go, yeah, give me a few hours, I'll figure it out.
So what's going on in your life at this time? You finally moved out of mom and dad's basement and have a company that's independently standing and thriving. What's happening in your life?
I was great until I wasn't.
Yeah, 2003?
2003, yeah. Started bleeding when I sat down to go to the bathroom, filling a toilet basin with blood.
Would you say you were the healthiest athlete coming into this time?
No, I was overweight. I was out of shape. I mean, I played soccer when I was growing up, so I was always active, but I hadn't been active in a while, and so I had timelines to hit, right? I was focused on business. I was focused on growth. I was focusing on making all the money in the world that I ever wanted to make and doing all the things that I ever wanted to do. And so when I sat down and my stomach was like turning over and churning, and I sat down to go to the bathroom, I was like, I'm going to ignore that for as long as I possibly can.
Some of us would just call that lactose intolerance.
Yeah.
It was a little bit worse for you.
Yeah.
This turned into cancer.
Yeah. Basically, that turned into 8 months of sticking every probe up and down me that they possibly could to ultimately find a grapefruit-sized tumor in my gut, small intestine. They cut it out. They cut out the 2 feet of intestine on either side of it, sewed me back up, severed my abdominals, and I had to learn to walk again. And then once I learned to walk again, they put me through chemotherapy. But thankfully, I had established a business that was so self-sufficient at that point that I had teams of people doing the work for me, and I really didn't have to worry about too much.
And I'm sure other than everyone being worried for your health, it's you just had you to worry about at this time, right? Yeah.
I was married at the time, so it was just my then wife, now ex-wife, and me. But the business, I had no worries about the business. It was going like gangbusters. We'd keep creating technology. There were new people that we brought in, smarter than me, able to create new technology. It was great.
And I mean, it was a bit ago, but cancer treatment at the time, chemo, should have been okay.
Yeah, because at the time I had a health technology company, I was interviewing oncologists, and I was talking to them, and they were telling me about the state of oncology, and they were telling me that basically they were stumbling around in the dark trying not to kill people. At the time, I didn't have a connection to cancer. Then I got diagnosed. Then I realized what they were talking about. And then my treatment for the cancer, they said, hey, listen, there's like a 2% risk that if this gets out of the main vein that we're putting this into, it could damage your heart. But honestly, we know more about hearts than we do about cancer. So this is your best method of treatment. Do you still want to go through with that? I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, 2% risk of damaging my heart. I'll take that risk. And my doctor said that it was the way to go. So I went with it. 5 months of chemo, lost all my hair. I've kept it that way ever since. But 3 months out of being declared in remission, I found out that I was in end stages of heart failure. By the way, my company had expanded from oncology and gone into cardiology. So as I was getting healthy from the cancer treatments, I started interviewing cardiologists and talking to them about heart disease and heart failure. And number one and number two killers in the U.S. of citizens are heart disease and cancer. And I had both.
Life might have stopped then?
Yeah. So it didn't. I went through my treatments. I basically adapted. I didn't know what I was adapting to, but I was told that my life expectancy at the time should be recalibrated. It was a nice way of saying, your clock's short, so whatever you're going to do it now.
You had a successful career. It was just you and your ex-wife at the time.
Yeah.
You guys have money to go start enjoying life. Yeah.
And we did. And so over the course of the 7 years that I was in heart failure, spent a lot of money. But I was still making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Then when I finally found out that I was in the final stages of end-stage heart failure and I had to go on the heart transplant waiting list, I said, all right, I contacted my partners. Now, I've been working this whole time, but I contacted my partners and I said, peace out, y'all. I'm selling my portion of the business. Because at the time, there was a lot of stress, turmoil within the relationships between my other two partners. And I didn't want to be around that. I didn't need that stress in my life. So I was like, I'm selling my business to you guys. I was 38, I think, at the time. Went on the heart transplant waiting list, sold my business, and had a whole lot of money. And I spent it because I thought I was dying. I was dying. And I did die twice.
Now, just for reality, I mean, your then now ex-wife position, she was going to be okay.
Yeah.
You spent your money for yourself. You enjoyed life thinking that time's come and I'm gone.
And I had this great big old life insurance policy that I knew once I was gone, whatever I had would be multiplied and then some, so that she was set for the rest of her life.
You made amends and you were ready to go.
I was ready to go. I didn't want to go, but ultimately, so many people say, why me? I've never said why me. I say why not me, because it has to happen to somebody.
I mean, you had started a crazy successful business. You made it to the top of what a lot of people would put as a outlook on life, and you were comfortable.
Yeah, I was.
Was it scary? I mean,
terrifying. But end-stage heart failure is not a fun thing. It's not anything that I'd wish on my worst enemy. I used to run these businesses, and then it narrowed down to me and the 3 inches around my body in bed. I couldn't lie down anymore flat because my heart wasn't strong enough to pump the fluids out of my lungs. So if I lied flat, I would literally drown in my own bodily fluids. So I was propped up in bed. Every time I closed my eyes, I was exhausted, but I was afraid to sleep because I didn't know if my eyes would open again. So I would stay awake for days on end until my body would finally collapse. I would fall asleep. And then a day later, I'd wake up and I go, I'm still here. There's nothing I could do. I didn't have the strength or the energy to get up, walk out of bed. I was literally atrophying and dying in my own bed. And it was at that point where I realized that something needed to happen. I either needed to get an opportunity to live or I needed to die.
Yeah.
Because that purgatory, that limbo, was not living.
So when did it change?
I
mean, you're here now.
Yeah.
This is many years later, so we got the positive outlook, but...
Yeah, January 3rd, 2011. I was in the hospital. I'd been rushed to the hospital. I'd collapsed in my cardiologist's office in a follow-up checkup. They rushed me to Penn Medicine. And January 3rd, actually January 2nd, into the 3rd, they said that I was sleeping 23 hours a day at the time. Just dying, just waiting for something. And this transplant coordinator comes into my hospital room. My family's there. I happen to be awake. She says, "We think we found your heart. Do you still want to go through with it?" I was like, "Do I have a choice?" And she said, "No." She was crying. And I was like, "All right, let's do this." And at that point, I had no fear of death. I either wanted to hurry up and die or I wanted to hurry up and have a shot.
Well, for those who don't know, do you have a choice?
Sure, you can decline it. Yeah. If you don't want it bad enough, don't
Somebody
do it.
else needs it.
Yeah. So they whisked me into the ER, not the ER, but the operating room that night. And January 3rd, 2011, I got the best loaner that anyone has ever received. And for me, I say this a lot, but I'll say it here again. It's somebody else out there who did not know me, mm-hmm. and their family decided to save the life of a complete stranger on the worst day of their lives. They didn't owe anybody anything, but they said, I can't use this anymore. I'm willing to loan it to you if it can maybe help you live. In the long shot, that you might be able to live from this gift.
Yeah.
And man, for me, that speaks to a level of compassion and courage, just integrity, that is so next level, and it is such an immense gift. I know that I can never, ever earn it. I can't.
I want to ask, when you were waiting to die, mm-hmm. did you have an idea of what you would do if you did have a second chance?
Oh.
Before you knew that the heart was found or anything, like, were you thinking, hey, if somebody gives me one more chance, I can do this, that, the other?
Yeah, so I had this stupid mantra at the time, which was, I kept telling myself, and I thought it was really slick, because I was on top of the world, and I just said, you know what? I know I'm putting in crazy hours all the time, but I just want to work hard enough, long enough to make enough money to do all the things in life that money can't buy. And then I died twice. And I realized that if I was given another chance to live, that I would make the most of every moment that I was given. And I would thank everybody for everything that they had ever done for me, or every interaction that they had allowed me to participate in. I committed myself to living a life of gratitude. And again, a lot of people get so caught up in why me, and I've never thought that. It's why not me. And if I'm going to be able to live through that, then I have a responsibility on the other side of it to share that with people and to say, yeah, you know what, why not me? And man, here I am. I'm doing all these things. I'm not supposed to be here. 2 people were supposed to die on January 3rd, 2011. I got the better end of the deal. I have somebody else's heart beating in my chest. And it's up to me to say, you know what? I'm going to be the best custodian that I can of this person's legacy. as a matter of gratitude.
You made a quite drastic life change after this happened and started down a physical pursuit.
Sure. Yeah.
Why?
Coming out of heart transplant is the equivalent, the surgery itself is the equivalent of being hit by a Mack truck. So you're split open. Your sternum is cracked open. So I had completely atrophied leading into my heart transplant. I continued to atrophy coming out of my heart transplant. I couldn't lift my head an inch off of a pillow in those months following. So unless someone was there to lift me out of bed, I couldn't do anything. I was just laying there and getting bed sores. And I tend to stay independent. I like being independent. So as I was in the hospital recovering, I stayed at Penn for like 7 days. I think that was a record at the time for a heart transplant recipient to get a heart transplant and go home 7 days later. But I started doing laps with my walker around the halls of Penn until they said, "You don't need to be here, go home." I was like, "Great, thank you." And so still, if I didn't have a walker, if I didn't have somebody lifting me up, I couldn't lift my head an inch off a pillow. And so I would, by myself, I would wiggle what was left of my butt cheeks until I fell off the bed to the floor, army crawled my face up to a vertical surface, pushed my face up a wall, and staggered back and forth in my bedroom. And I'd taken the company out to see a little sci-fi movie, adventure sci-fi movie, while I was still taking everybody out to see IMAX movies as a company. And there's this little movie called Iron Man. And so as I was still in the hospital, they bought me a replica of Tony Stark's heart from Iron Man. It was basically a joke proof that Derek still has a heart.
Yeah.
So as I'm looking at this Iron Man thing and I'm staggering from one side of my bedroom and back and forth, I'm thinking, wouldn't that be funny if one day maybe I might be able to run or swim or bike? And I just kept going, and every day I just tried to do a little bit more. I stopped looking at where I had been previously in my life, and I started looking at where I was the day before. And I told myself, as long as I get that much better every single day, that little bit will add up.
1% better is 37 times better at the end of the year.
I didn't know that quote at the time, but it's true. So I did that for a year. And at the end of the year, I was in better shape than I'd ever been in my entire life. And I said, I don't know how these guys did this, but this is amazing. I feel amazing. At year 2, because I kept doing it, at year 2, I looked back at year 1 and I said, year 1, Derek had no idea what the hell he was talking about. This, at year 2, is the best that anyone has ever felt. I kept doing that and saying that at year 3, year 4. As I was coming out of heart, let me rewind. As I was coming out of heart transplant, they gave me a 3-ring binder with the tutorial of how I was going to live my life. Yep, and a grocery bag full of medications, 50 plus medications, high dosages. They say, this is how you're going to live your life. Here's this 3-ring binder. You're going to track your vitals in this 3-ring binder. You're going to bring it back to the hospital every week. And you're going to share this with your doctor. And we're going to adjust your medications based upon the data that you track. By the way, don't mess up or you'll die. And I looked at that and I said, there's got to be a better way to do this. They said, we're Penn Medicine. If you attempt anything differently, then we won't follow it. No doctor here will follow it. And you'll have to go back to this. So just fill out the 3-ring binder. Just do what you're told. And you've got a good chance at living. So I got home and I said, you guys don't know who I am or what I've done. And I threw out the 3-ring binder. And then I built the technology around monitoring with wearable technology that fed wirelessly into my iPad, tracking all the data, and then fed that to my doctors in real time. So I had the iPad. The first time I went back in to Penn for my first cardiac checkup, post-transplant. And the nurses come in and they go, well, where's your 3-year binder? I said, I threw it out. And they were shocked. And I said, but here's what I've tracked. And I handed them my iPad. And so then the one nurse called in the other nurse. That other nurse, the two of the nurses ran out of the room. They pulled in a doctor. Yeah. The doctor looks at it and goes, this is amazing. Who did this? I said, I did this. He said, can you keep doing this? I was like, yeah. So I became the most compliant patient that they'd ever seen. And they were able to take years off of my treatment. And so it allowed me to do all of the exercise-driven things that I wanted to do just by seeing a need, knowing that something didn't exist, and knowing that I had the capability of building it, knowing that if I mess it up, I would probably die.
This is still all within how many years are expected for a transplant?
On average, they last about 11 years.
So are you just, because I'm thinking right now, like, you're already starting another technology, but like, how are you even surviving day to day financially, like outlook wise? So or are you just not even worried?
I wasn't worried about it. So I did start another tech company. I lived off of disability as long as I could. Because I didn't want to go back to work. I didn't want to make that all, I tend to obsess. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to make work all encompassing. So I lived off of the disability check as long as I possibly could. At the same time, my wife at the time was still working. Between our two incomes, we were doing okay. But it got to a certain point where I was getting television publicity for doing Ironman triathlons and being on disability, and it wasn't a good look. And so I had to start another tech company.
So let's hit one and just start. You did your first Ironman how long after your transplant?
2.5 years after my heart transplant.
And you were recognized as, correct me if I'm wrong, the first cancer surviving heart transplant recipient in the country or in the world?
The world.
To complete an Ironman?
A full distance Ironman after cancer and heart transplant, yeah.
The Lake Placid in New York?
Yeah.
In what year?
That would have been 2013.
All while, taking meds just to stay alive?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When did this new business start? Because you've been speaking at this point. You're
I started,
phenomenon across the world now.
I was very, very fortunate to be in a place, and I was very fortunate to have the responsibility of sharing my story. Again, not an extrovert at all, but I had the responsibility of sharing the story so that other people could see what was possible.
In a tactful way, did you start leveraging this publicity with, what was the next business?
The next business, I leveraged something that I had built during M3, and I'd taken some of that business with me. So it was creating technology for meeting planning, meeting logistics, and delivering content from meetings. And this was a cancer, a charitable foundation. So that was our big job every year. And we would create new technology for it and get it out, build the websites, have the video pumping through so that people could participate in it, even though it took place in Texas every year.
So you're traveling the country doing triathlons and Ironmans.
Mm-hmm. Speaking.
Mm-hmm. You have the nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just being grateful every next day for waking up.
Yeah, and I started a nonprofit called the Recycled Man Foundation. And the whole premise was fighting for a life worth fighting for. That was the tagline. But it was helping people who had gone through significant health challenges and helping them get them back on their feet by becoming more active.
So what was this new definition of success? I think it's going to be pretty humble, but...
Just making an impact. Getting a story to someone and having that story mean enough to that person that it changes their outlook. and changes their understanding of what they're able to do.
And this was all the way up until about 2016?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, we turned that company, we ultimately stopped doing the charitable group out of Texas. And this is right around the time that I started dating this amazing woman who's now my wife. But she and I started a new tech company. There's probably a couple other tech companies that were started and failed and started, but we always figured that we would do something. But yeah, I wasn't really worried about money.
So health had some problems in 2016, went into remission. Did that scare you at all? Did that give you some outlook, or were you already past that and you were like, I'm just gonna make it?
Yeah, I mean, there's always that fear that lives in the back of your head, but I figure I'm living in the bonus round right now. Everything is gravy.
So more triathlons, more running, more speaking, and then 2020.
2020, yeah. Everything came to a grinding halt. When was COVID?
January,
yeah. So basically, found out that I was really good at that time at giving away money and not really making any. And so COVID hit, and basically we still had meeting planning, but the world shut down. And we also had a tech company that was creating marketing, online social media marketing for businesses that were helping other people get healthy. So race directors and gym owners. And then the world shut down and nobody could talk to each other. And what was and what had been a decent income dried up in the first week. Lost 70, 80% of our income at the time. And I did not know how to pivot. I tried, lending my services out. I couldn't speak anywhere in person. I couldn't help any gym owners because they couldn't help themselves. The people that we had hired, we still honored our contracts with them and paid them for work that wasn't able to be done. And because that work wasn't able to be done, our clients didn't pay us. And very, very quickly, we went from being comfortable and traveling and doing all these things to saying, wow, I now have a wife, I now have a daughter, and I have no income. I've given away everything that would have made us comfortable. I've got to pivot. So, I did everything. If someone would have bought my blood, I would have sold it. I ended up driving Uber and Lyft. Because I was a heart transplant recipient, former, C-level executive, entrepreneur, and I tried to get hired, but nobody would hire me. I was, 48 at the time or something like that.
So I met you in your last and now current venture.
Yes.
How did you discover the world of insurance?
ZipRecruiter.
You mean you didn't go to school for this?
Ha! No, not at all. I was educated as a music teacher and a filmmaker. I avoided money and calculators at all costs. But yeah, I basically, sheer desperation, knowing that we were in a bad way. We had gone from having no worry of money whatsoever to really just making sure that I could buy a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter and make sure that my wife and my daughter ate first. I had prescription medication that was keeping me alive that I had to take every 12 hours, but I couldn't afford my prescription anymore. I'd fallen off my healthcare plan. So I was going to pharmacists and saying, well, can I just get enough pills for the next 2 days? And then I'd drive Uber and Lyft and I'd get another $50. And I go, how much can I get with this much money? It was rough. So out of sheer desperation, I responded to an ad in ZipRecruiter and found life insurance. Now my wife, Erin, she had been a financial advisor back in the mid 2000s. And I said, is this like a legit thing, or is this like some kind of crazy MLM scheme, scam? You know, is there any chance at all that I might be able to make us some money doing this? And she walked me through it. She said, yeah, it's legit. You know, see what happens. So started in the life insurance arena, started working mortgage protection, sales and income replacement and final expense, and kept talking to people who wanted stuff that was not falling. They were square pegs that I was trying to fit in round holes because I didn't know that there were any other square holes to fit them into. And what I wanted to do didn't exist. And I said, there has to be another way. So went to a conference in 2022, found out about advanced markets. I said, oh, there's this whole other world of life insurance that I had no clue about. And did you know that there was these things called financial advisors and financial planners and accountants and all this stuff that had been taken care of for me in my previous incarnations? I really didn't have to deal with too much.
The thing that I want to understand, because you gave it a massive grace period to get started here.
Yes.
You know that you're a successful person, but you sat on this opportunity for 6 months of like earnest, I'm going to keep doubling down, and with zero return on your investment.
Correct.
And this was a 1099 position. This is a 1099 position where this is your money at play. Mm-hmm. There's nobody funding you here.
Other than Erin, my wife. She was working a really horrible job. I mean, it was a decent job at the time at a COVID testing facility, and she became a manager there, being able to work from home because she was taking care of me by not going out into the world and exposing herself to illnesses, because I'm now immunosuppressed because of the heart transplant. So we were working within confines of illness and immunosuppression. But yes, she was funding the venture, and I would try and get another, Uber or Lyft fare, and we would scrape our pennies together and we would buy 50-cent leads. And as you said, the first 3 months, the FBI lost my fingerprints twice. It was a mess. Our car was repossessed. The second 3 months was me dialing and dialing and dialing and dialing and dialing and dialing because I was awful at sales. I'd never been a salesperson. I'd always been a CEO or a CTO. And so did that for 3 months, reading the script as it was given to me, saying, I've got to follow this script. I've got to follow this script. I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. If anybody asks me more than what's on this page, they're going to know that I'm a fraud. They're going to know, and I'm not going to make money, and I'm going to fail.
And I just want to say, your mileage may vary. We're both in the insurance space now. We both know plenty of people who have what seems to be overnight successes because we're fortunate enough to be in an environment where there is a game plan. There is a roadmap who's been created by highly successful people before us, and it doesn't take many brain cells to follow the script and work things right. But just like you were saying, you came from a mindset of, I'm not a W-2 employee, I'm a business owner.
Right.
How did that change for you, or what about this opportunity did pan out right?
Well, I saw it as the ability to run my own business and run it with autonomy. It was my wife and I. We didn't have to answer to anyone. The business was already set up. And I'd built so many businesses that I knew what it would take to build a business, build a product, build a strategy, launch the product. And I didn't want to go through all of that again. I wanted predefined products that I could just go out and offer to people. I love the fact that it had no inventory. I love the fact that I could do it at any time, from anywhere. It was working from home. It kept me healthy. And the upside potential was massive.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that, again, if I rely on myself, there's nothing that I cannot achieve if I put my mind to it. And if I put my back into it and I push. I will, put the plow straps on me and I will till the field until it bears fruit. And that's what I did. And I saw people come into this business after I did, be more successful than I was right out of the gate, and quit before I even made my first sale. And it took me $1,500 a week for 3 months straight, buying 50-cent leads, getting screamed at, police whistles blown in receivers of their phones into my ear, people not showing up, until I finally realized that I had to just stop trying to sell someone on anything, because I was willing to sell them anything. And I just had to flip that into, how can I help the next person I talk to? And so I ditched the script, and whenever I would get anyone on the phone, I would say something to the effect of, hey, you reached out for help. How can I help?
What I really want to kind of close this out with is just the idea that you always found your team to join. Mm-hmm. You always made yourself indispensable within the team, and you leveraged that to great extents and great lengths in every venture you've pursued. Mm-hmm. What does that look like now, and what qualities would you say you have maximized to, expand this potential or this opportunity for you?
Well, the insurance company that we now have, which we now own outright, it is owned by a tech company, right? So there's...
How serendipitous.
How serendipitous. And they are involved in creating technology and products to make it easier to help people. And we have been extremely fortunate to have done so much business, or enough business, and trained enough other people that we've been asked to help design some of these products. We've been asked to help with our feedback and provide guidance on shaping how these things play out in the world. So, if I can help people to be of service, to be of value, and provide value to our client base by designing better products and better technologies and helping more people, by empowering agents to be able to help more people. Like, I know that my hours in a week, my hours in a month are finite, but now I'm gratefully in the position of helping other people help more people. That's all I want to do, because now I can multiply my impact on the world and on the people that I serve out of gratitude by just teaching other people to do what I do and making the tools and the technologies and the products that allow them to do that. It's the coolest gig in the world.
So what's the next 5, 10, what's your next timeline, and what's happening? What are you proud of, or what are you excited for?
I'm the most excited about seeing the people on our teams grow. I'm the most excited about seeing somebody come in with a W-2 mentality and having them find their entrepreneurial spirit to take ownership of something that it's not just something that they work for this company, they work from home, they work for this company, and they're sitting on their laptop in their house. No, it's they own a business. And when they take that ownership and they start acting like owners, and they bring people on their teams and their team members do well. And then you start seeing the wheels spinning of, wow, if I could do this with one person, I could probably do it with 5. If I do it with 5 people, I could probably do it with 10. If I do it with 10, I could probably do 50. If I do it with 50, I could probably do it with 100. And by the time I get to 100, 500 to 1,000 is not that difficult either. At that point, by the time they write their first policy, between the time that they get their first policy and the first person they brought in, and that first person writes business, if you find the right person, they have already seen the multiplication value of what it is that is possible. And that changes lives. And from there, you have more time, access to more money, and the ability to help more people than most people have ever had in their entire lives. That's where I see it. That's what excites me about the next 5 to 10 years, is just building our agency, my wife and I, Erin, our agency, the Fitzgerald Agency, into something that serves not just our clients, but the people we work with and alongside, like you, right? And seeing those people build their agencies, and just seeing the spark, seeing the fire, seeing the people that they've helped and made an impact in their lives. I don't know that it gets any better.
I love it. The biggest thing of reason I want to talk to is, obviously I am in the insurance world. You are my mentor. Mm-hmm. I came into this in a time of, hunger and looking for more. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of where I am now and why I'm doing this Doer Paradox project is because it took me the better part of 3 decades to get to the point where I'm finally pursuing my dreams. Mm-hmm. I want people to be empowered and see that the roadmap exists, and we don't have to be the stubborn one redefining and reinventing the wheel every time. We can put ourselves in the right environments. Mm-hmm. And I would just say the biggest takeaway here is you have to find the team. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be a lone wolf in any of this. You can find a team where you can plant your flag and grow your value, or just learn under. It doesn't have to be forever, but start somewhere. And it's a lot cheaper to leverage somebody else's experience, time, money. And the other side of it is you need to pursue something, whether it's going to be something that you can leverage to the fullest extent, whether it's your time or the resources that you have available. Or in this instance, for me, the reason I can finally pursue the Doer Paradox now, after wanting to start so many different businesses for years, is I found insurance, and same thing. It was something that I could leverage. Mm-hmm. I now have the resources and the time flexibility and the control to create an environment where I can do both.
Right.
And that's the pursuit for all of us, is to continue to expand that and double down. I mean, not just double down. We say now 10x is easier than 2x.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that you have to surround yourself with people, which you have been since a child. Surround yourself with people where this is not a limiting belief, where anything is possible. And anyone who's further down the path of where you want to go will never look back and judge you.
Exactly. Think back to just when I was talking earlier about how physically fit I became after I went through cancer, heart failure, and a heart transplant. There was no fire that lit me to be physically fit and active and healthy before that. Mm-hmm. And I was living like I was going to live forever prior to all those things. The trick, if you can manage it, is to not have to die twice, to understand that life is finite and that there are things that you can do to take care of your body. There are things that you can do to take care of your health. There are things that you can do to take care of your mind, your spirit. And there are things that you can do to take care of your finances before you go through dying twice and a heart transplant and going from riches to broke back to riches. There are things that you can do that, if you can figure it out without having to go through the valley, then you've got it made.
Awesome. Derek, I'm going to include in show notes a couple different resources because there is a lot if people want to chase down and learn, more about your stories, whether it's the triathlon side, the Ironman side, the insurance side. So I'm going to include all that. Anything that you want to include?
No, I just think that if you are out there and you are somebody who is, not satisfied with where you are, you don't have to settle. You can leverage tools like what we do, reach out to you and say, hey, how do I get more because I want more? And wanting more is the driver. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Sure. Anytime.